And if you ever have a hankering to start a college, call me first. Because if we had known what we were getting into, we probably wouldn't have done it. But we didn't know. I was the old man of the group. I was 30. Everybody else was, I didn't start college till I was about 28. I did the Navy, and I did a bunch of other stuff. And so that's what we did. And through that process, we found this system, which we called Thomas Jefferson Education, because it was Jefferson and with. And we said, this is great. This is how we'll do college. We'll build a college this way. And over time, we found that there was actually application across the board. This turns out that it's not just Thomas Jefferson Education. It's actually the science of how and why people learn. And after we did all our research, we took people like Gandhi and Mother Teresa and all those kinds of people, and we reverse engineered their lives to find out why they're so cool. We should be able to find some things here. We found a lot of commonalities, and we said, okay, that's the system. And after we did all that, then we heard about Dewey and Vygotsky and Piaget and Erickson. And we found all this documentation, this science that proved exactly what we just found. We could have saved 15 years. But now we have a second witness, right? It's cool stuff. And so we're going to walk through that a little bit. What does that look like? What did those guys say would happen? Well, what they said was, if you have a child born in a very, very loving, warm family, all the creature comforts are taken care of, and they have all their needs met, no academics, zero academics, but all these other things available, that kids would learn all on their own, believe it or not. Of course, all of you who've had little kids know that they just sit in a corner and vegetate, right? They just kind of quiver. They don't do any learning unless you tell them to, right? No, of course not. From the second they're up to the moment they pass out, learning. It's all learning. And so if you leave them alone and simply support them and give them love, these little guys are already hardwired to learn. They do it automatically. We don't have to do anything. In fact, we do way too much. And we burn some of that learning desire out of them. So it's kind of broken up into what's called 4 phases. The first phase is called core phase. Now, we're going to go into much greater depth. We're here tonight to actually promote a seminar that Chris and Ray Villeman are putting together, and Tracy's helping them, and I don't know if you have other people who are helping you guys, but anyway, there's a bunch of people that are supporting this, want to bring the seminars here, and we're going to talk about this stuff for like hours. Tonight we're just going to go over like 10 minutes here, okay? But we're going to come back in May and do a huge spread for you, 2 days. It's great. You need to come to this. Bring all your friends. Let's have to do 2 seminars because there's too many people. Okay? All right. Core phase. Core phase is the phase where you get your moral compass. It's where you establish and learn your virtues and kind of the thing that's going to guide you for the rest of your life. And so we don't like to put the ages up here because people get fixated on ages, because we've been taught that 0 to 8, within that, at 5 you should have these skills, and at 7 you should have these skills. Hooey. I have 6 kids, not one of them fit that thing. Some expert, I don't know where this guy pulled this out of his ear, but this stuff doesn't really work that way. There's things you learn, there's some general ages you can anticipate, but everybody's on their own path. And if you buy into this idea that they come hardwired, then the best thing you do is back off and let them live their path, provide all the virtue, provide all the great things for them, but don't try to pigeonhole them into something, because they generally aren't going to fit. And you just cause problems. So I'm going to put the ages up here because we're all kind of trained to think that way. And I promise you, we'll revert back to the ages here in a minute. And I'll have to keep pulling you away from that. So we're going to modify this. It's 0 to 8 plus or minus 80 years. And this is where you're getting that core, that compass that's going to guide you. Okay? And there's really 2 places you can learn this. You can either learn this in a family environment, or you can learn it in a classroom with 30 other 5-year-olds. Well, you get your moral compass. I don't know how much virtue is going on in that classroom. It's probably more like Lord of the Flies, right? But in the family environment, it's kind of cool because you have gender differences, you have age differences, but you have relationship differences. See, when we have a mom and a dad, truth is taught one way, virtues are taught one way. But then you have, an auntie, you have sisters here. And then we have, cousins, and we have Uncle Fred over here who's, in his own little world, right? And then we have Grandpa interfacing with that. And when kids watch all of this stuff, and through that they get a sense of relationships, they get a sense of what's proper, what's not proper, all that stuff that's going to guide them for their life. You don't pick that up in a room of 35-year-olds. It just reduces to a bunch of grunting and spitting and things very, very quickly. Here you do. But what happens is a child is in this phase here, and they're really focused, they're in the moment, they're kind of doing their own thing, and over time as they develop in this healthy environment, their attention, their awareness starts to expand. They start to notice things they didn't see before. And somewhere along the line, that actually leads to a jump to the next phase. It's called love of learning. This is where they start to notice that there's a bunch of things outside their little world. This is where abstract thought starts to come in to play. This is 8 to 12, plus or minus, 80 years. And they have lots and lots of questions. And they also kind of learn differently. Here, they have their attention span is pretty short, pretty narrow. They don't spend a lot of time on things that and they won't need a lot of attention nurturing. And they get into this phase, they start to elongate that attention span. They start to focus. They'll get on dolphins, right? They'll be on dolphins for 3 or 4 days, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And sometimes, if you're not there they miss meals, and they'll want to stay up late, and read books with flashlights and all kinds of stuff, because they are into their thing. And we think, oh, I'm so proud. My daughter's going to be a marine biologist. Next thing you know, she's over in baseball. Complete shift over to this thing, and then over to this thing, and then over to this thing. And during this phase, they just do tons and tons of focusing on different topics, but not picking. It's really kind of interesting. What do you think they're doing? Remember, they're hardwired. They don't even know what they're doing, but what do you think they're doing?
Experiment.
Why?
Because it's fun.
They're hardwired. So they're actually after something. They're looking for their passion. They don't know it, but that's what they're looking for. They're looking for their mission. Think of mission in a different way. Think of mission as you get exposed to all this great learning and things, that you're looking for something that fits along the lines of either, heal the sick, clothe the naked, free the captive, educate the ignorant, so on and so forth. And as you get exposed to all this stuff out here in the world and all these things, all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, I think I have a mission. I'm not sure what it is, but I think I'm going to do something great in this life. And that drives you to the next one. And that's scholar phase. Scholar phase is 5,000 hours of intense study. This is the liberal arts. The liberal arts are not preparing you for a job. The liberal arts are preparing you to be a human being. Remember, in this phase, are kids loving and kind and generous, or are they selfish? Very selfish. It's very self-oriented, okay? And even in this phase. But in this phase, when they get a sense of mission, a sense that they're supposed to be doing something, a sense that God wants them to accomplish something, all of a sudden, they start to realize, whoa, the world's bigger than I am. This is our last night, so I'm going to share this story. I haven't shared it before. We used to send a bunch of kids to Africa and do things there. And I have a friend, he's a black man. His name is Harry Bonner. And Harry's a great guy. But, he figured, he's a black man. We're going to Africa. There's black people there. I'm kind of going to lead out here, My people, right? So they go and they do all these fun things, but then they go to this hospital. And they knew they were at the hospital because you could smell it about a block away. And anything that you could think of that would be revolting and turn you off, that's what was in this hospital. And he's there with a bunch of college students, a lot of girls, 18, 19, 20, and they go up to this hospital. Now, these girls have been studying the liberal arts and humanity and a love for mankind and all this kind of stuff. And they get to this hospital, and they go in, and there's some kids out on the porch, and these kids are just oozing and just could hardly stand it. And he gets to the threshold, he gets to the beginning of this door, and he cannot physically get himself to go through the door. It's just too intense. And he's standing there as these white girls are streaming past him, going in and picking these babies up that are just caked. And they're holding them and they're kissing them. And Harry, tears running down his face because he cannot go hold one of his own people. But these white girls can.